talk to you
Yeah? About what?
about the car,
What about the car?
the dent.
I just bumped the mailbox when I was backing out yesterday.
It's happened to you a lot lately, huh?
I don't know if it's happening a lot.
Look, I'm concerned for your safety, Dad. I think we should explore some alternate modes of transportation for you.
You're always your parents' kid, but it's never too early to have the tough conversations. Visit 4070talk.com and have the conversation today.
Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on the 40-70 rule. Hopefully what we're going to be able to do today is to address some of your concerns that may be a little bit difficult and challenging when caring for an older loved one who wants to age in their own home. Growing older sometimes forces change, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. So some of the things that we want to address with our older caring loved ones are living choices. Sometimes they want to stay at home as long as they can. They want to downsize. They want to move to a facility. So those are all things that you want to address with your loved ones as well. Financial choices. Do they have enough money to provide them with the lifestyle that they're wanting to live until the end? Health. Are they healthy enough to stay at home? Maybe they're healthy enough to stay at home if they have some additional care. Relationships and dating. Sometimes we have a spouse that has passed and the other spouse is wanting to get out there and start dating. So those are some conversations that you may want to have with your parents and find out if they have the significant other there for loneliness or for an actual, companionship and a true relationship. Driving. Driving is definitely a difficult topic for all of us to have with our parents. When is it time to take the keys away? The end of life. You need to find out what their directives are for their end of life, what they're wanting to have done, and do they have a DNR on file? Sometimes, unfortunately, we tend to wait until there's a life emergency before we start making these decisions or having these conversations. 70% of conversations end up being prompted by a life crisis, and sometimes that means we are waiting too long to be able to do that. It's no surprise that families put off these important discussions about those end-of-life issues. In fact, 68% of families surveyed by Home Instead, Inc., franchisors of the Home Instead Senior Care Network, waited too long to begin discussing these end-of-life issues. We know having some of these conversations is difficult. It's like having, the sex talk with our teenagers. Having this talk with our parents is even more difficult at times. So 7 in 10 families have not had the adequate conversations about the aging and end-of-life conversations with their parents. So now is the time to start doing that. And through a survey, the top 3 things that our seniors have found that is the most touchy to talk about: their sex life, the financial situation, and the potential for a move. Research has showed that 31% of families have had adequate conversations. That's kind of low. And 58% of families who are caregivers experience problems due to lack of communication. So one of the things we want to make sure that we're doing is talking and talking and talking. Make sure you open up that conversation. These numbers line up with what senior care professionals say that that these conversations are very necessary so we can address those end-of-life issues. The senior care professionals, again, estimate that only 60% of families who care for a senior will experience problems as a result of lack of communication. Excuse me. Why aren't our families talking? Part of the reason for that is that it is difficult to address some of these conversations. It's hard for us. The conversations can end up being stressful. They can be uncomfortable. There can be strong emotions with yelling and screaming and tears. Someone will end up crying by the end of the conversation. Things get miscommunicated. So we want to make sure that we're able to address the conversations in the right way as well too. So what do we want to get to is the 40-70 rule. What this basically means is that about the time that we are in our early 40s, our parents are approximately in their 70s, and that is the time to start addressing these issues. You should have that talk as early as possible so that these issues can be avoided, hopefully, later on, or the situations that don't escalate. So the Home Instead Senior Care Network refers to this as the 40-70 rule. The first thing we want to do is put an action plan in for successful aging. So the great tool to use is 4070talk.com. It's a great tool to map out a plan for key areas of life, including living choices, financial choices, health, relationships, driving, and the end-of-life directive. So these are all things that we address there at the very beginning. These are 6 challenges that are very difficult. Starting conversations is early, but it's never too late to get them started. The 40-70 Rule Action Plan for Successful Aging can help you begin uncomfortable conversations about aging and put your plans and wishes into action. Some of the things that you will find in the plan, or the 40-70 Action Plan, include planning, where to go, resources. You will find also a handy checklist. Expert advice on the challenge areas of conversation. Compelling research to help you understand the scope of aging. Thought-provoking issues that make it easier. Think of the word ACT, access, consider, talk. And there will also be some helpful tips for special circumstances such as living alone, blended families, religious differences, and living with dementia. The 40-70 Rule Action Plan for Successful Aging. Again, the assess, consider, and talk. These topics include a strategy that will help you be able to address these issues. By following these steps, seniors and their families should be able to determine what they want their future to look like, evaluate all available options, and put together a definitive action plan. Next, we want to talk about some tips that will help boomer children communicate with their aging parents. One of the first things is to get started. If you're 40 or your parents are 70, it's time to start observing and gathering information carefully and thoughtfully. Don't reach a conclusion from just one single observation. Make sure you decide on the best solution after you have gathered all your information. The second thing is to talk it out. Approach your parents with a conversation, discuss what you've observed, and ask your parents what they think is going on. Get their input as much as you can. If your parents don't recognize a problem, then you have to use concrete examples. As you saw in the video earlier, the son mentioned to his dad that he noticed there was a dent in the car, so he knew something had happened. Sooner is best. Talk sooner than later. This might be able to avoid a crisis down the road. Number 4, don't talk to your parents like they are children. Make sure you talk to them like they are adults. Remember, you are talking to an adult. Patronizing speech or baby talk will put older adults on the defensive and convey a lack of respect for them. They are your parents. Maximize independence. Always try to move towards solutions that will provide the maximum amount of independence for the older person. Look for answers that optimize their strengths and compensate for problems. You can always look for professional caregiving services in your area, such as Home Instead Senior Care. You can do meal preparation, light housekeeping, medication reminders, all sorts of things that will be able to assist them in staying in their homes as long as possible. Number 6 is to be aware of the whole situation. You can't just go off of one situation. It may just be an isolated incident. But if your dad dies soon after if your dad dies and soon afterward your mom's house seems to be in disarray, it may probably because she's not suddenly became ill. It's much more likely to stem from a lack of social support and the loss of lifelong relationships. So there are going to be some changes coming about. So need to find out why those changes are happening. And last but not least, ask for help. That is probably most important of all. Many of the issues of aging can be solved by providing parents with the support they need to continue to maintain their independence. Resources such as Home Instead Senior Care, aging area agencies on aging, and local senior centers can provide those solutions. So use your local resources. There are several other available resources out there. The Conversation Tree is a good place to start with the 4070talk.com. There are videos also at 4070.com as well that provide a thought-provoking and slightly humorous look into the life of family chats. Caregiverstress.com is also another great resource. It's a wonderful resource for helping you address these topics with your parents, and it helps you be able to learn how to deal a little bit less stressfully with the situation, because whether it's a paid caregiver or a family member, you are the main caregiver, and you do need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and getting the assistance that you need as well. So that ends our presentation. So now we will open it up to the floor for questions.
Who do I talk with with to create a living will or a durable power of attorney?
Great question. There are advanced directive forms online. Obviously, you can Google anything these days, so you can research that yourself. But a great resource also is a local elderly law attorney.
Can you tell me why a medical alert device is critical for seniors living at home?
Sure. Safety is our number one concern with our elderly. So we want to make sure that even when we're not able to be there with them, that they are as safe as possible. So those alerts can be set up where they will contact the family directly, or they can also call 911. So those are great resources. It's almost like having another person there when you're unable to be there. Yes? Yes.
Would you explain palliative care, please?
Palliative care is a whole team approach to caring for our loved ones towards the end. They help them with their symptoms of pain, nausea, fatigue, and depression, and helps improve their quality of life.
How do you have the conversation about no longer driving with a loved one? And what's the best practice to take the keys away?
That is a very difficult question. Sometimes you just have to sit down and say, you know, Dad, it's time we have this talk. You know, like you saw in the video earlier, you know, it's just a conversation that just has to be approached. There is a website called letstalkaboutdriving.com. Great resource. It will give you some ideas on how to address those things. Sometimes just a matter of taking a ride with your parents and checking out their driving and see if it's as bad as what it is, or if that one little dent in the fender was an isolated event or not. So take a ride with them, see what your feelings are, and then you can move forward from there. Anyone else?
How does aging affect mental health? And are there statistics that show depression or anxiety increasing with age? And how can you help a loved one with that?
Originally, well, until recently, most professionals thought that anxiety and depression declined with age, but they have now found out that it is the same, whether with the younger generation as well as with the elderly generation. And you can go to the ADAA.org website, and this is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, and they will give you some ideas on how to recognize and be able to treat some of this. But they are finding out now that most of our elderly, if they have anxiety and depression now, they most likely had it as a youth.
And how do you help a loved one combat loneliness?
That's a good question, because we do find that a lot with our older loved ones. Most of the time, if you can get them involved in a local activity, there should be some senior centers around. Try to help them get out and about. Pull in an agency like Home Instead Senior Care. Let them have, find a companion for them. Maybe if they just come out a couple times a week, take them out, get them activities. Just start getting them, socializing, and find the activities that they like or used to like, and maybe reintroduce them back into their life. Anything else?
Yes, going back to when you're having, or you want to have this sort of difficult conversation, who should be there in the room when you have these conversations? And what should their role be?
Sure. Usually it's a little bit easier if there is one point person for a larger family. If there are several siblings, have one point person that can be the directive for addressing these situations. But you also need that support as well too. You need all your siblings there. Any of the family that may have a stronger effect or stronger connection with that loved one who can help influence them and get them headed in the right direction.
So what if the kids are older than 40 and the parents are older than 70 and you haven't had that conversation yet?
It's time to get started. It's time to start talking. I'd like to thank the Purdue Extension Health and Human Sciences for this opportunity, and hopefully we've been able to address some of your questions and provide you with some resources on how to start addressing these difficult questions and situations with your parents.
Hi, Mommy.
Hi, sweetie.
What you doing?
Just getting dinner ready.
Well, there's something I need to talk to you about.
Okay.
I have a important question for you.
What is it?
Are you financially prepared to move into an assisted living facility someday?
You're always your parents' kid, but it's never too early to have the tough conversations. Visit 4070talk.com and have the conversation today.